All right, it is 3 o'clock, so we are going to begin our December monthly meeting. So welcome to our Top Score Writing monthly meeting. I'm so glad that all of you guys are here today. Um, I'm sure you're pretty exhausted. It's December. You made it halfway through the year, and I'm sure you're ready for that Christmas break. So congratulations that you all made it this far. So we are going to go through some specific writing strategies and some things and tips and tricks for today's meeting. So our agenda, we're going to focus on pacing. So the focus plan for the new year, you should be kind of thinking about what your plans are starting in January when you get back from holiday break. We're also going to talk about boot camp. Our boot camp goes out in January. We also have brand new, I shouldn't say brand new, but accelerated pacing guides that go hand in hand with our boot camp. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Student self-assessments. So color coding and checklists. So students should be self-assessing their writing at this point. Remember, we want them to be the teachers more than you are being the teachers at this point. So we're going to talk about color coding and using our checklists, using student checklists to guide independent writing, and then engaging writers through fun writing experiences, part 3. And then lastly, any questions and answers that we can do at the end. So pacing, creating a focus plan. So you've got to make sure that before you go on to holiday break, that you are checking in with your students. So we got to make sure that, and I say this based upon my own experience as a teacher, when I was teaching at this point in the year, I was at least 3/4 away into the section 2, which is expository writing, text-based expository writing. I had most of section 2 completed by Christmas time. I say that to you because when we get back from holiday break, typically I'd spend probably 2 weeks reviewing and finishing up section 2 so that I could immediately get into section 3. So just keep that in mind. If you are further than that, congratulations. If you're a little bit behind, that's okay. Just keep in mind that pacing, because remember, our testing time is that first week in April. So we got to make sure that we have enough time to get through section 3, as well as give ourselves some test prep time. So kind of check in, get with your colleagues, go through your plans. I always tell teachers to plan backwards. Why? Because you want to make sure that you're getting through all of those lessons, topics, skills that your kids need extra time with. And if you don't work backwards in your calendar, most of the time you'll never get there. So I always work backwards to make sure that I got through all of those lessons. So make sure that you're meeting with your colleagues, that you're checking in, you're looking at, okay, what's working, what's not working, as well as what are those skills and topics that my kids really, really know well that we can kind of check off, and what are some things that we're going to have to take some more time to do. So all those hard skills, elaborative techniques, quoting, paraphrasing own thoughts and ideas, narrative elaboration, those are all things that you're probably going to have to review, especially when you come back from holiday break. So make sure that when you get with your colleagues before you go on holiday break, you kind of check in with everybody to see where they're at with their kids. Also, assessments. So you may want to do an assessment prior to going on holiday break. Why? This is going to show you data on your students' strengths, right? We want to know those strengths because we don't want to waste any time when we come back in January working on things that kids already know. We also want to use this data to see weaknesses. What do we have to go back and reteach? Or what do we have to do in order in our small groups, right? So we may have 3 kids that are struggling with introduction paragraph. Okay, we're going to focus on introduction paragraph in January when we come back with those 3 students in small group. Or we may have 18 kids that are struggling with introduction paragraph. I'm going to reteach it. I'm going to take a couple days, and I'm going to make sure that my colleagues know that I'm taking a couple of days, because that is a topic or a skill that my kids need extra time with. So looking at that data is a huge part of tweaking kids' writing. Also, conference with your students prior to holiday break. This is your time to conference. When I say conference, I'm not saying take 20 minutes for every single kid and pulling them out of the classroom or into the hallway and talking with them. Nope. I'm saying that you're conferencing with kids maybe 1 to 2 minutes, just focusing on one skill at a time. So maybe you pull each kid for a couple of minutes and just go over one skill that they really, really need to practice until holiday break. And then when they're coming back from holiday break, just to kind of reinforce that. Also, a focus plan for 2025. Like I said, I want you to meet with your colleagues and come up with a plan. You want at least 2 weeks of test prep. So you're thinking about finishing all of your whole group instruction, all of your skills and lessons by mid-March, end of March. Okay, maybe even before that, because think about it. You have spring break. So I may even change my answer to that. I would say maybe the first week in March that you are completely done with whole group instruction and that you're starting to test prep and starting to conference more and do some of those fun activities to really review all of the skills of writing in March, so that when it comes down to April, because April, the first week in April is your testing window, that you are prepared and you have everything ready. So keep that in mind. That's kind of your goal. If you are a tested grade level, especially state of Florida, remember, we want to make sure that we are getting through all of those skills before April 1st. All right. Boot camp, accelerated pacing guides. So available for grades 2 through 10. Doesn't matter if you are in Florida or if you are nationwide. We have accelerated pacing guides. So they are edition specific. We have links to the boot camp guides and they will be included in the meeting follow-up. So please make sure that you look at your follow-up to get those boot camp plans. So let's say that you've had Top Score Writing since August, September, you've been using it, you're kind of on track, you know where you're going with it, but you still want to look at our boot camp plans. What we have done with those boot camp plans is that we've kind of shortened it so that we don't have all of those lessons. We've taken the core skills and those core lessons, and we've made it into 30 to 40 days, all right, depending on the grade level. So they are specific. You can literally follow them and they will have your students prepared. If you are one of those teachers that have been using Top Score Writing since the beginning, you may be going through these boot camp plans, being like, my kids already know this, and you're crossing things off. But then you're looking at some of those core skills and you're like, man, I taught this, but my kids need more time on this. I'm going to go back and reteach, or I'm going to have small groups. So now you know, if you're a teacher that has been using Top Score Writing this entire time for this entire school year, you know those core skills, those core lessons, and maybe you just kind of reiterate those lessons or reteach those lessons or review those lessons. If you are a teacher who just got Top Score Writing, your school just got it, you just started to use it, you're kind of behind, or you've had it and you've been behind and you just need to get caught up. So you can use our bootcamp plan. You literally are going to follow lesson by lesson, and you're going to go one step at a time. And if you follow it lesson by lesson, your kids will be fully prepared by springtime in order to take your state assessment. So we have them, like I said, for nationwide as well as specific to Florida, and they will be in your follow-up. Student self-assessments. Students should self-assess daily. So we want students at this point in time to be looking at their writing. It does not matter if it's a complete essay, if it's a part of an essay, if it's just transition words, whatever it is, we want them to self-assess and look at their work. How can they make it better? What can they do? What are they missing? So 5 minutes or less at the end of every lesson to self-assess and look at their work. This is a life skill. This is a life strategy. We want them to do this when they grow up and they're just writing a regular email, right? So we got to make sure that they're self-assessing. Provide a key and highlighters, colored pencils or crayons. A lot of teachers are color coding, just like we do in our curriculum, in order to make sure that students have all of the components that they need for each part of their essay. So highlighting, colored pencils, crayons, any sort of color coding, not only is it fun for students, but it gives them a visual of all of their components or their elaborative techniques, their quotes, their paraphrasing, and their own thoughts and ideas. Direct students to color code their own writing, like I said, and provide 2 minutes for revising. So it's very important that they revise and make their writing better. I know myself as a writer, when I'm excited or I'm in a hurry, like when we're timing our students, sometimes we forget words, right? Which totally makes whatever we're writing, our essay, or if it's our part of an essay, make no sense. So we got to make sure that they're going back, because I know kids, and you probably know yours, especially some of those ones that make mistakes regularly, to go back, check for punctuation, check for spelling, and to check that it makes sense. So making sense is huge. I know a lot of teachers that are so obsessive with our checklist and making sure that all those things are in there. But if a student doesn't make sense, for instance, they have their 3 components for their introduction paragraph, but they have no idea what they're talking about and it doesn't make sense, that is a problem, right? So making sense is more important than having every single component of our checklist. Keep that in mind. All right, color coding to self-assess, like I said. So we can self-assess our components. In this case, this is an introduction paragraph. We have our hook in pink, our 3 reasons sentence in blue, and our closing statement in yellow. So we can see a visual of our 3 components that we must have in an introduction paragraph. When students see that they have their 3 colors or their 3 components, they then know, oh, I can go on into the next paragraph. We also color code our elaborative techniques. So our paraphrase evidence is in green. Our own thoughts and ideas are in pink, and our quotes are in blue. So if we see a balance of green, pink, and blue, or our students see a balance of green, pink, and blue, it tells them that they have a balance of those elaborative techniques. It's so important that they have a balance of these 3 colors or a balance of these elaborative techniques, because if they have more than one, most likely, it's usually quoting. I want to be honest, in my 4th grade class, I usually had a lot of blue in there. Why? Because kids like to quote and copy from the text. When that would happen, guess what? I'd say take it back, revise, right? So this gives them a visual of those elaborative techniques. They want a balance of those 3 colors. All right, ways to utilize checklists. In my own classroom for years and years and years and years, I always had the checklist, the self-assessment checklist for checking your own paper and for checking a partner's paper. I had baskets of them at the back table. So you can self-assess part of an essay. If they only wrote their introduction during the lesson, then they would only use the introduction portion of the checklist. You can self-assess an entire essay. So after completing a full write during an assessment, they would use the checklist to assess their entire essay, or they can use it to act as a guide while students are writing. So my lower babies always had one of these checklists next to them when they were writing so that they could check off each component in their essay as they wrote. I used to make sure that they had the marker boards and they would do it on there. So it's one of those things if you wanted to do that. But the checklists are very important. Also in my own classroom, and not very many teachers do this, but I have met a couple that do. They give their students variations of our checklist. So depending on students' skill levels, so usually they have their lower babies in one skill level, then they have a middle skill level, and then a high level. Their checklist, they have 3 separate checklists based upon the skills in each one of those levels. So you may have your low babies that just have their introduction paragraph and they have 2 body paragraphs with 3 to 4 sentences in a conclusion. And then our mid group may have topic sentences added in there along with conclusion paragraph that's at least 4 sentences. Whatever it may be, you have a variation of the skills based upon your students' knowledge and skills. It's helpful when tweaking students' writing and giving them expectations. So you can use our full checklist, but sometimes teachers kind of make it smaller for those kids that need that. All right, engaging students through fun writing experiences. So building writing stamina. So this is part 3. All right, race against the clock. This is something that we've done for years that is super fun. And if you've never done it, your kids will absolutely love it. So you're going to have students read a text set and a prompt. I did this together in my classroom with my students. So I gave everybody the same text set and the prompt. I then got the timer ready and told my students that they will have 10 minutes to plan. So they're all going to plan. And when the timer goes off, hands go up. I'm like, all right, hands up. And we would go through and I would check all of their plans. So 10 minutes to plan. If they got their plan correct, it looks good, they have their A's and B's, everything is there, I would either give them maybe a Starburst, so a piece of candy, or a raffle ticket, or class money, whatever it was that was my incentive, I gave it to each kid that had their plan. Then we would do a second round. So the next round would be the introduction paragraph. So I'd be like, all right, you have 5 minutes to write an introduction paragraph. On your mark, get set, go. And everybody would write for 5 minutes their introduction paragraph. Then the timer would go off. I'd be like, hands go up, right? And I'd walk around and I'd check introduction paragraphs, just skimming and scanning. If they had their introduction paragraph there, it looked like it was at least 3 sentences, capitalization, punctuation, everything was there. I gave them a Starburst. I gave them a raffle ticket, or I gave them glass money, whatever it was I was giving out that day, I gave them another one. So I kept doing this for each part of my essay. Number one, it kept my entire class silent and engaged. Number two, it was practice with a game. So we're still practicing writing, the skills of writing, reviewing those skills, but it was a fun competition, right? Number three, there was incentives, there was rewards. Anything that you put in front of them as a reward, they're going to work for. So I always had rewards and candy or whatever it was for them to work. It gave them 6 times, right? They had 5 parts of their essay plus the planning, 6 times to get either a piece of candy or a raffle ticket. So Race Against the Clock is super fun to review the skills of writing an entire essay. You write, they write. So this is great when you are trying to reinforce certain skills. With this, you all are not going to have the same text set and prompt. So you as the teacher, you're going to have your own text set and prompt, and students are going to have their own text set and prompt. So you don't want students to have what you're doing because you don't want them to copy. All right. So you're going to have your own text set and they are just going to watch you. So you are going to plan with your text set and your prompt first, and you're going to think out loud. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to go back and erase. You're going to solve out any problems that may come about. And then you're going to say, all right, I just planned in 10 minutes. You watched me plan. Now it's your turn to plan. And you set a timer and you're going to have them plan for 10 minutes. And then you're going to say, all right, put your pencils down. It's my turn. I'm going to write my introduction paragraph. And you're going to write an introduction paragraph with your 3 components, your hook, your 3 topic sentence, your closing statement. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to forget a period on purpose. You want them to pick up on some of those strategies and those mistakes so that they're using those same strategies when they write their own introduction paragraph. So they're just watching you. And then when you're done with your introduction paragraph, it's their turn. You're going to say, all right, you have 5 minutes. You're going to write your own introduction paragraph, and they're going to write their own introduction paragraph. So it goes back and forth, back and forth. You don't want them to be writing the exact same thing that you're writing. That's why you give them their own text set and their own prompt. But you want them to be using the exact same strategies that you're thinking aloud using while you're writing your own essay. Super helpful for them to see each part of writing an essay. So going into something totally different, our Top Score Writing VIP Teachers Facebook group is doing the 12 Days Till Winter Break giveaway. So we love our teachers so much that we will be raffling off a prize on each of the 12 school days leading up to the holiday break. Guys, there are some amazing prizes on there. Stuff from Sephora, there's Amazon gift cards, I believe Starbucks. There's a lot of fun things on there. Stanley, Uggs, Tory Burch, Lululemon. There's a ton of stuff on there. So please, please, please follow us on our VIP writing, Top Score Writing Teacher group so that you can be part of our giveaway. And then is there any questions? Please feel free to put it either in the chat or to raise your hand and I'll let you speak. Other than that, please be on the lookout for our Top Score Writing follow-up so that you can get those bootcamp plans. And my name is Katie Jackson. I am the Director of Curriculum here at Top Score Writing. You can always get me at katie@topscorewriting.com. So feel free to ask any questions right now. And if you are good to go, I wish you a great holiday break. Yes, Rebecca,
Yes.
do you have a question?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much. So we've been using Top Score for many years. This is Franklin Academy and all of our schools use it, so we love it. Last time that I was on, I had asked I thought it was a really important question because a lot of my students got to the 9 and I was really happy about that. They scored a 9.
Okay.
I'm in Florida. I'm in Broward County. So Lisa had told me that there were 3 things that I needed to make sure the kids got to make sure that they get to the upper scores. It was having advanced transition words, using like anecdotes, and make sure their essays had voice. I remember
Yes.
finding the transition words. Is it the same one that's in your PowerPoints, or is there a new one? Have you guys updated that? The advanced transition words.
Advanced transition words should be in your curriculum. Do you have a digital license?
We do, yes.
Okay, so you should find are you 4th, 5th grade?
4th grade.
4th grade, you should find a lesson with advanced transition words in your curriculum.
Okay.
It's usually at the end of section 2 and section 3.
Okay. All right, perfect. And then I saw that you guys have a section on voice, which is wonderful. I
Yes.
love it. Now what I'm trying to get my kids to do for the hook, because for so long, it was like the kids were like writing questions and doing some of that same, some of the same stuff, which is not bad, but I don't think that that's getting them some of the higher scores. Do you guys have anything? Because I went back and I looked at it and I saw that you do list anecdote, like to use an anecdote in the hook, but do you guys have any specific lessons? Because I just kind of went online and it just kind of put some stuff together, but I don't know if you guys have anything on like, additional, like how the kids can incorporate like an anecdote. Like I did it on my own, but if you guys had something. So that was the question.
I will, before you leave here, please give me your email address and I'll personally email you. It's the narrative elaboration lesson. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
But you want to look up narrative elaboration because of the fact that, yes, it's personal anecdotes. It's those short, cutesy little stories
Yes.
that go hand in hand with the evidence from the text. So
Okay.
when we talk about narrative elaboration, we want those cutesy little stories throughout as like own thoughts and ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that within the sample papers. So that's how we kind of teach that is a small story, even if it's made up, you can
I
make
told
it
them. Yeah, I told my kids that. I told them it just has to be believable. That's the
to be
only thing. It has
believable.
to be believable. Yes.
And I kind of put that with voice. So narrative elaboration with voice. I always would analyze within my ELA class overall in reading, I would analyze text and I would ask my students, what is the mood that you feel from the author when you read this piece of text? So when we're talking about personal anecdotes, we want those cute little stories so that we can see the personality from the author, from the student.
Right.
So that's kind of how I did it, but I want to make sure that you get that narrative elaboration lesson and you can look it up, but just put your email in the chat and I will make sure that you have that.
Perfect. Because again, and I have a really good class this year. So I have really, really good writers. So I really want to make sure we can break through the 9 because we had a lot of 9s. I had only 1 10 last year, 2 10s. And so
Okay.
I know these kids can do so much better. And listen, they're high scores, but I know that they're capable of much more. So I want to make sure that we are giving them
And-
everything that they need. You know what I mean? That I'm teaching them everything so that they can incorporate all of that. Is there anything else that what you guys have seen on your end so that we can get to some of those higher scores? Because I just thought I had kids that their papers were just okay and they got nines. And I looked at some of the other kids' papers and they got nines. So there wasn't really any way to kind of tell. Somebody said it was AI, it was graded by AI. I don't know. Do you guys
Sure.
have any insight in that into like how the scores were all over the place? I mean, I had a bunch of
Yeah.
nines, but it was
Yes.
like some of my nines I thought could have been higher and some of my nines should have been like eights or sevens. Does that make sense what I'm asking? Because it was just
Yes.
all over the place.
You are correct on the scoring with AI. Most papers were scored with AI, and usually based upon the 3 categories in the state of Florida. If you got a 3 in purpose and structure, you got 3s all the way across. So that would make a
Oh.
9 because we were either seeing 3s, 6, 9s, or 12s. Like it was one of those
Right,
things where we were
so
getting
weird.
them across. So
So weird.
um, to get those higher scores, I would say if your kids are able to take an introduction and put a personal anecdote in there, or like a little story, cute little story
Mhm.
that goes hand in hand in the intro, and then come back to it at the end to conclude, kind of bringing the story back
Oh,
around,
nice.
that
Okay.
makes the paper way more advanced.
I love that. Okay, great. Because that's why I wanted to talk to you guys because we're trying to make sure that we're covering that because I want to break the 9, right? Break the ceiling of 9. I got to get them. But I had 2 10s though. So it was interesting. I only had 2 10s and I was happy with the 10s. And we did see some 12s, not in my grade level in 5th grade. So it was just all over the place.
Okay.
Okay, so
Well-
that's good though. So that makes sense. So you're saying if we did the anecdote at the beginning for the intro, kind of bring it in the conclusion to kind of tie it in together.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna have to model that. Like I know you were talking about that where let's say I would do that myself, I'd have to model that because with the kids, you know, if you don't show them an example, I think
yeah.
it'd be hard for them to do that.
100%. You're gonna have to model it more than
Yes.
once, but if you have an advanced group like that, and I had gifted for many years and I was able
Okay.
to do that with a lot of them, but
Okay.
that takes a lot of modeling because they have to think outside the box.
Yes.
Sometimes when they start to write, by the time they get to the conclusion paragraph, they totally forgot what they wrote in the introduction. So they have
know.
to kind of go back and refer to that introduction on where they're going with that.
Yes,
kind
and
of
that's what
conclude.
I'm finding now, which kind of scares me a little bit because, and I'm sorry if I'm taking up your time. It's just some of these kids are going off, right? And they're going too broad, and then they're
Yes.
like they're losing their focus. We're still
Yes.
expository, you know, so it's hard. So it's kind of like you want to have that in there. The good kids can stay on, but the kids that are and they want to write this, their introduction is like 18, you know, sentences. I'm like, guys, you can't have 18. You know what I mean? It's like it's a
Yes.
little frustrating, but yeah. So there's a lot of extra stuff that we're doing. Okay, but adding the conclusion, that would be great.
Yep.
Okay, good. And then anything else that you think, because we want to be able to have, because I always say if the kids have a good foundation with expository, once I get into argumentative, it's a lot easier to make that switch because they
100%. You'll fly through argumentative.
Right.
It's
Right.
way faster. You may want to check out your section 5 too with just activities, and there's some review stuff in there that's more advanced, like middle paragraphs. Just check
Okay.
it out for me. That may be helpful to you.
Okay,
But
no paragraphs.
yeah, advanced transitions, those personal anecdotes, that introduction, conclusion, that kind of hook and tie together. And what
And then the
else?
voice, of course, which is
And
just your
voice, yes.
personality
That
coming in.
personality, yes.
Perfect, perfect, definitely. Okay, well, great. Thank you so much. So do you want me to just put it on the question, just put my email here, my school email? For
In
you
the
to
chat
send it to me?
box.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
perfect.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Nice
I'll put it
meeting
in
you.
now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, Elizabeth. I think you can hear me, and I think you can talk now if you want
Hi,
to try
can
to.
you got me?
Yes,
If
hi.
Rebecca is still on, narrative is elaboration is lesson 41 in the second section.
You are awesome. Thank you so much for helping me out with my job. Awesome.
Yep. My question is, so we were talking about the transitions master list, and you know, I tried to make some of those kind of anchor charts for my students to keep in their writing binder with all of their with all of their things. So my question is, do you have a section that already has some of these anchor charts, like the QSS and the EBTs? And do you have a section that has these already made, or is that possibly a section that could be made so that, you know, we have like those quick, okay, here are what EBTs look like, and they have the printout of them, and then
It's so funny that you say this
as a
because we were just
reference guide.
talking about this on
Yeah.
Monday. We were just saying this. It will just tell you within the lesson if it will say create an anchor chart that has this information, but there's no like visual picture of an anchor chart that says exactly what to write on it. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah.
So it may be something that comes about later on, but as of right now, I don't know as far as what we're gonna do with that, but you're not the first person who has asked that.
Okay. Just because, like I said, I've been making some of them, and some of it I do based upon the example I use to teach with, and then I make copies of that, and like, here's your model, keep it in your binder, you know, in the plastic sheet protector, so that you always have it for a reference. So I'm like, okay, pull out your EBT reference sheet.
So
And
any sort of like the IRC outline, any outline or anything that, like you said, transition words, all of that stuff, I would either have them create in their own like notebook, like write it
Mhm.
out, or I would give them a sheet and have it in their folder so that they could refer to it like you just said. But anchor charts should be pretty much exactly what those are. So I mean, I have people that are always asking me, can we add to the transition words? You can totally Google advanced
Oh yeah.
transitions and get
Yeah.
tons of them. So you can totally add to what we have, but there's not a picture that says this is the anchor chart and this is what it looks like.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was mostly not necessarily for myself, other than I was struggling with the EBTs. So I gotta, even when I Googled it, I was finding very simple ones that were more of a
Yeah.
transitional phrase than they were an actual EBT. Um, so that's the only one I'm really struggling with. Um,
Evidence-based terminology.
yes.
I
Uh,
will
just
give
trying
me
to
your
come up with a variety of them, you know, and some of them I've come up with on the fly, and I just didn't write down to put up on my anchor chart. But um,
so give me your email address in the chat, and I'm almost positive I've made one of these in previous years for people with tons of EBT phrases, and
okay.
I will send it
That
to
would be
you.
great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now I see my chat is disabled, so should I just put it
It
in the
is.
Q&A instead?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. I think that's all I wanted was, you know, because you know, the resources, I'm loving the lessons. This is our first year with it. It was recommended by one of our reading coach, and she was like, I want to try this with you guys. So we have 2 grade levels using it right now, or half of 1 grade level and a full another grade level. So I'm really loving it, and that's just one of those pieces that if it was already made, it would have made my life easier to be like, here's your reference sheet. I get some of the ownership with the kids, but I also am struggling to make sure I have the time to make, you know, and I don't always have the
Yes,
time
I
to
agree.
have
Time
them
is
taking
always the
notes.
issue with
Yes.
everyone. It's not just you, with literally everyone. 20 minutes
Yeah.
of whole group instruction as much as you can, and then tweaking whenever you can in order with your conferencing or whatever. But 20 minutes whole group instruction just in order to make sure you get through each of those skills so that kids are having some sort of exposure to them.
Yes, correct. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And I'll send that stuff over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm typing it now.
Thanks. Thank you. Hi, Kim.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you?
I think my question is with hers on the anchor charts, but my teacher asked it a little bit different way, and I have no idea what's going on because I do not use this on a daily basis. But question that I got from them last week when I asked, knowing this was coming up, was, is there a resource for all anchor charts somewhere other than going through each individual lesson? And I'm assuming based on how you answered the last question that that's a no at this point.
That is a no as of right now,
Okay.
but like I said, it comes up a lot, so it may be something that we create sooner rather than later. I can bring that to the team just to see. But after every lesson or throughout the lessons, you'll see within the lesson, okay, make an anchor chart that, but we don't have any pictures or visuals where it says it should look like this.
Right.
What we want is for teachers to be making those anchor charts with the kids while they're doing the lesson. So that kind of is a variation of things, but with the major skill there. So we don't want to give that to them, but you're not, like I said, you're not the only person who's asked. So
Okay, well, I
I
assumed
do-
that was the answer based on the last one, but it was asked a little bit differently, so I was like, well, I'm gonna ask because this is what my teacher wanted to know.
and if I end up, if we end up making something like that, what school are you at?
I'm at Mayor Unified School District, but Mayor Elementary,
Florida,
no, Arizona.
Arizona. And can you just put your email, and that's just something if we end up making, I will definitely be contacting you with it.
Sure, and my chat was disabled too, so I'll put it in the Q&A as well.
Yep, that's perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Any more questions?
Yes?
Yes. Yes, Elizabeth, did you have a question?
No, I
Your hand
already
was
you
raised,
already
so-
answered mine. I think you forgot to
Okay.
put my hand down. Oh, I didn't lower my hand. Okay.
Thank you. All right. If there's no more questions, I wish you guys a wonderful holiday break and have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, everything. And we will be seeing you in January.